is sponsored by Fial, your Jaguar and Land Rover dealer in the Algarve. Come and visit the Fial showroom in Faro on the airport exit. Welcome to the Portugal Diaries podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Claire. We obviously know her as Queen of the Paddle Courts in the Algarve. But for our listeners out there, you may know her as Kam Heskin, Hollywood actress, star of Prince and Me, Catch Me If You Can with no other than Leonardo DiCaprio, and of course, Planet of the Apes.
Wow, thanks. That's a nice intro.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. And so I was going to bring tequila this morning, but I realized it was like 9 a.m. So it seemed like a really early time to...
That may have worked, to be honest. It's been a long setup. So, Cam, listen, we obviously know you over here. You play paddle with us, you do everything. But you're originally from the US. Whereabouts in the US, and how was it growing up there?
I grew up in different parts of the U.S. I was born in North Dakota, which is very Scandinavian, and as you can tell, I'm basically completely Norwegian. I grew up in Colorado, and then I spent basically my adult life, I think, in Los Angeles. I went to college in Minnesota. I spent a year in New York, and then out of New York, I actually booked Sunset Beach. They saw me from a Degree deodorant commercial where I played a bride. Very unsweaty bride, I guess. And so the casting director of a show in LA saw that, and then they brought me out to screen test in LA for a soap opera. And so that's how I came to LA. And I went out and I screen tested for it, and then we didn't hear anything. And I was there in the Universal Hilton for like the entire weekend. We didn't hear anything. So I got on the plane to go back to New York. And we were rolling out. This was pre 9/11, by the way. And we were rolling out from the place where you get on the plane. And the stewardess came on, the flight attendant came on.
Yeah, careful.
I'm belying my age here. So the flight attendant came on and said, "Can Kam Heskin please ring your call bell?" And so I thought, oh my gosh, what do I have in my luggage? Like, do I have scissors? Like, what's going on? So I ring it, and she said, "You got the part, you have to get off the plane." And all the people started cheering.
Wow.
That's amazing. So she said that over the PA.
Over the PA. Yeah. And so I got off in the airport, and the people from NBC actually came to the gate, because like I was saying, it's pre 9/11, so you could do that then. Yeah. And then they took me, they couldn't get my luggage off. So I just started in LA from that point.
And how old were you at that point?
I mean, probably like, I think 23.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And did you always know then that you wanted to get into acting? Was this something you were kind of like heading towards, or did you just fall into it and you just got lucky?
Yeah, I originally wanted to be a broadcast journalist, so I wanted to do news, be a news anchor. And then I kind of fell into modeling. I won a modeling contest when I was going to college in Minnesota. And then from there, I sort of ended up moving. Well, I guess I did a stint in Chicago really quickly. And then I ended up getting a New York agent. I was with Wilhelmina in New York. So I moved to New York to do that. And I found modeling, like, it was great and fun, and you can travel and stuff, but I felt like I wanted more.
Yeah.
And so I started taking acting classes and stuff in New York, and then that's why, I'm not sure they helped me much if you see a lot of my my work, but and then I sprung to LA from New York.
Wow. And so in terms of classes and things, would you say that there was anything else that helped, because you've landed some pretty big roles, so what helped to sort of...
Yeah, it's weird. I was thinking about this the other day. When I look back at a lot of my acting coaches, I don't know that I felt like a lot of them were that helpful when I look back. In fact, I think a lot of it actually made me self-conscious, so I kind of almost wish I hadn't done that and just gone on instinct, because I felt like initially I had a lot of really good directors, because they truly want the best out of your performance and stuff, and they're not there to have you, longevity-wise in their class forever. And so I felt like working with a lot of these directors initially was really helpful. One of my first projects was with Dolph Lundgren, and this director, John Woo, who at the time was a very big action director. And he was great. He didn't speak a lot of English, so that was an interesting barrier there. But even just learning from these people initially was incredibly helpful, I thought.
And what about Catch Me If You Can? Because I think we all want to know a bit about like Leonardo DiCaprio in his prime. Like, how was that? How did it even come about?
I think I was 27 or something.
Well, I think that's Leonardo DiCaprio's perfect age for the girl, isn't it? In fact, that might be cut-off age.
I might have been too old for him at that.
Yeah, I think his cut-off is 25.
But it was interesting because back in the day, around that age range, he would date people in my age range-ish. And then as we got older, he would date the daughters of friends of mine, which became a little bit interesting. But that was a really fun project. And the way that they set that up was incredible. So Steven Spielberg directed it, and they basically, I was one of the flight attendants, and they sat us there. They had lines that we had memorized, and they were like, throw that out when you get there. And they sat us there with Leo, and he would just ask us questions, and then we just had to answer them. So it was very improvisational. And so they said, you are the flight attendant, and the plane's about to take off. So give us the announcement that you would do. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay. I think I said something like we're traveling 300 miles an hour at an altitude of 900 feet or something like absolutely ridiculous. And then you say a bunch of other things, really, and please buckle your, your seatbelt and all these things. And then they just use clips of the things that we said. Okay. And then when we had to walk from the car to the airport, and Steven had Frank Sinatra playing "Come Fly With Me" like really, really loud over the set, so everybody could kind of feel the energy of it and walk to it. And it's neat to see how they set up that stuff to really create the energy of the set and the performances and things like that. So it's not just sticking to a script and then they add all this in later, but they create the experience around you that is helpful.
I guess if you're working with, like, my mind automatically goes, okay, so you're working with Steven Spielberg on this. You kind of think, is there a way where you go, right, I'm going to get in with Steven and then I'm going to get myself some of his roles going forward, or does that not happen in that world?
I mean, I didn't. For me, I just wanted to do the best job that I could, but he did kind of support some other projects going forward. They did a pilot at one point that didn't go, and he gave me, I wish I still had it, he gave me a baseball cap that said E.T., and so I had it forever, and I wore it all the time. And I finally thought, oh, this is worn out, so I'll give it away. And now I'm like, why did I do that?
Wow. So that's actually one of my all-time favorite movies, E.T. Really? Oh, I love it so much. Yeah, but then I'm older than you.
I loved it too. So.
Yeah, it was such a great movie. Mm-hmm. And so for you to prepare for these roles, like obviously in that movie you were a flight attendant, in The Prince and Me, you obviously had to, be this kind of young girl turning into a princess kind of thing. Yeah. So how do you prepare for the roles? I always wonder.
Well, I think it's different. There's different sort of techniques that you can go to it. Like, do you become another person, or do you make that person become you? So I think that that's sort of the first thing that and if I'm becoming that person, what things of myself do I take into it? Or if that person is just going to become me, how do I bring, parts of myself once again to it? So it's just, I think you have to look at the behavior of the person, the way they hold themselves, I think is really helpful. For me, wardrobe is really helpful, which I stocked at today. So thank you, Jen, for dressing me.
We've had a full styling session before. We can't say we can do that for any of our male guests.
No, definitely not. They worked it out for me. And I think a lot of it is just becoming really comfortable with the dialogue.
Yeah.
Very important.
Would you say Catch Me If You Can was one of your highlights, or were there others that really stand out as being?
Catch Me If You Can, I think, is the thing that people know the most. It's sort of universal worldwide. People have heard of the movie, they've seen it. So I think as far as projects I've done, that was probably the biggest. The one I was most involved in and the lead in was The Prince and Me, because I did 3 or 4 of that series. I can't remember right now, but I was the me. And so it was, and we shot in different countries. We shot in Thailand and Prague and Bulgaria.
Wow.
So that was probably the most experience, because you're.
I remember that movie because my girls were kind of at the age where they were watching that then. Because there was another actress before you in the first
Julia Stiles.
1 or 2.
The first one.
The first one, yep. Julia Stiles,
Paramount,
and then you took over from her?
Yes.
How did that come about? How come it changed?
They do that a lot. I've actually replaced probably half of the things I've done. I replaced somebody.
Wow.
Sometimes it's scheduling differences. They have another project going at the time of this. Sometimes it's, like I said, availability, money, location. It can be all kinds of things that conflict, and then they're like, okay, this is going to be an ongoing series, so we need somebody that's going to want to do number 4.
Yeah.
And she may not want to probably do number 4 or whatever. So,
Hi, I will.
I know. I'm like, 13, I'm in.
And what about now? So any work commitments on the horizon? I've heard a little rumor that you might be...
Well, I have a friend it's interesting, since I've landed in Portugal, I've sort of just ran into all kinds of, making myself as busy as possible. But so I write for a magazine. I have my own page. It's called Scene in Wherever Magazine. And then I have a friend, my friend Scott, wanted to put together a web series. And he hasn't done it before. So he was kind of said, can you help me do this? And this, for me, I could do with my eyes closed. So it's a very fun project. It's back to my wheelhouse. So yes, I'm working with him putting together this web series, which we're trying to take a lot of time with and get it right. So it's not like, oh, let's just run out and just gather everybody in and see. Like, let's kind of take a view at this person, that person. And it's really important to him to get authentic Portuguese people involved in the project, at least, if not in it, because it does include some Portuguese folklore type storyline. I like to say it's Selling Sunset meets Charmed.
I was going to say, what is the premise of the web series? I didn't know whether you could say or not, but kind of
yeah,
what
it's
is
sort
it
of like
about?
Selling Sunset, which I don't know if you're familiar with any
I
of the real
love that
estate shows of the U.S.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like that, but with a bit of a fantastical element that kind of lends itself to the Charmed idea, which also probably dates myself. But yeah, so it's going to be probably 10, 20-minute episodes.
Okay.
Gearing to air in the summer, and we've literally just started even just talking over the conversations and thinking about who might be good for it and stuff like that, but we haven't solidified anybody. I know there's a girl that I'm really excited about. She's Brazilian, and she's kind of a famous actress here in Portugal. So yeah, and we've been talking with her, and that's kind of where we're at this point.
Will you star in it or no?
Yeah, well, I will be in it.
Okay.
I'd like to potentially to have a smaller role, and one that I feel really comfortable doing and that can probably carry throughout, but I don't necessarily need to be the star or have all the lines or anything like that.
Okay.
So, and that was sort of our agreement that I would be in it with him and help him with it. And then he's helping me with some things, doing my website. He's very good technically with things for another company that I have going on. So there's lots of things.
And what's the other
happening.
company?
So I wanted to do an anti-aging beauty company in the U.S.
Yeah. Tell us more about that.
with red light products like LED red lights, which they've done a lot of medical studies on, and they do find really great results with it. So, but that's a really
We were
tough.
talking about this last night. Yeah, we were totally talking about this.
Imports is a really tough thing to do, and I don't know what's going to happen now with our new president with that, but. Yeah, and it's one of those things that's just going to be piecemeal for me, going along slowly, and eventually it will happen. But I'm trying not to rush it. And it's like everything I do, it's like an escape room. It's like, okay, I'm getting the site together. Where's your trademark registry? What do you mean trademark registry? I'll be back. Let me go solve this issue over here.
Yeah, but there is that kind of thing which I always assign to: fake it till you become it. So apparently you're not allowed to say fake it till you make it anymore, but fake it till you become it. Because it's kind of, I don't know why they don't say fake it till you make it. But now fake it till you become it, because you're basically exactly like you just described. You're kind of like going along like, hi, I've got this product and this is what I do. And then somebody kind of throws a curveball question where you kind of bluff that you're like, that's okay. It's just on my desk. I'll bring it back to you. And it's kind of faking it until you come back and there it is, and as you go along.
I don't know. I don't like the whole fake it thing. I much prefer to say, like, start before you're ready. Do you know what I mean? Like, the podcast is a prime example
I
of
like
this.
that.
Yeah,
Start before you're
I feel like
ready.
if we'd planned this to the absolute, like, final detail, we would never have started.
No.
So I think just to kind of crack on, like, okay, get the first 3-4 guests together, get the studio, get the basics kind of in place, get the kind of big rocks in the jar kind of thing, and the rest will fall into place. You know? So
I totally
I hate the fake it thing, and I even hate the word. Yeah,
but I can't use that anymore.
We're gonna, I just think crack on, and you'll figure it out as you go. I think that's
well, that's what
really
I'm thinking.
good.
I'm more of a creative person. I'm definitely not a business person. So for me, if anything creative comes along, it kind of curtails me. So I'm really excited about this website. I love doing the magazine, and so I love doing this. Thank you for having me, by the way.
It's
really
having you
exciting to
on.
be
It's so
here.
exciting having you on.
Yeah, and so in the background, this will just continue to sort of plod along while I do these other things.
And tell us about the magazine, because we've seen it. You've featured in it quite a few times. I think you've even had me on there.
I actually wrote a couple of pages for in there.
That's right, you did.
So I love the magazine. I think she's got such a great eye.
Yes.
So I just think you're like seeing what you do in it. It just really suits the magazine, because everything is very kind of article led, and then you have these pages which I just think highlights the Algarve, but also in a kind of real nowhere to go way, and obviously your face.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really like the magazine because I like the taste of it. I think it's a classy, quality magazine. I think she has a good eye for Rowena. Hi, Rowena. She has a very good eye for these things. And it started, I actually was also a writer in LA, and I wrote for a magazine briefly there. And so I met Rowena, and I said, if you need any help, let me know. And I sent her samples of my work, and she said, great. So I started out with a column, and then I did some interviews. And then I thought, there's all these events, and there is an element of glamour here in the Algarve. And I'm going to these things, but no one has ever curated this together and put it together. So could I maybe do this, as just a page? And she was really supportive, which was great. And we came up with the name Scene. And so, I basically just go to interesting events. And we try to diversify, so it's not just all a certain, art or restaurants and that kind of thing. And so the magazine just sprung from there. And now I've limited it, so I just do the page, because otherwise I would just run out of time.
Okay.
But it must be such a cool way to meet new people, like come across, new venues. And
it is, yeah, and people you wouldn't necessarily always come across or come by.
Yeah.
Because you generally kind of meet the parents at the school, but it's nice doing something like that. You meet people in restaurants and local Portuguese people and artists and things like that, which is really interesting, I think.
And I guess that leads us nicely on to the sort of Portugal element of the podcast, because that was something we were keen to kind of dip into at some point, and kind of understand, like, how did you even come to be here? Like, what brought you to Portugal?
Well, we were in LA, and my husband and I actually had, weirdly, I had a baby in 2020 at 47, which is a surprise.
Wow.
And so 2020 was a really tricky time in Los Angeles. It was the height of the George Floyd protests. It was the height of COVID, and at one point, LA was the epicenter of the COVID epidemic. We had
and LA kind of very much did the whole, kind of masks, you can't go out, didn't they?
Very much so. I was trying to think. I think we went almost probably a year without leaving our house. I mean, we would maybe leave for walks, but we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Which was a really hard time for my 3-year-old at the time. And it was just, probably for everybody worldwide. It was just a really interesting time, and people experienced it differently. But so anyway, we were extremely locked down. We had crematorium running 24/7. It was just really, really bad. And then we had curfews that were ever changing. So some days it would be 1 in the afternoon, sometimes it would be 3. And I was having a baby in the middle of this. I think we had wildfires again at that time. And so we had like a smoke watch. So we had our windows and stuff sealed because of the smoke watch. And so the night that my water broke, we had a planned C-section, but my water broke before, like a few hours before that. So I felt like, this timing is matching, so that's great. We drove from our house. We had to have a sign that said "Woman in Labor, Cedar Sinai." We drove past the tanks on Sunset, showed them our sign. They gave us a thumbs up. They had skips and dumpsters across Melrose and a lot of the streets because we were having protests at that time.
So were you said the tanks on Sunset, were they because of COVID, or were they to do with the fires?
No, they were because of the protesting that we had on because of George Floyd.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we got to Cedars, and they wouldn't let my husband in because of COVID. So I went in. Then they brought him in just as the C-section was happening. And I was dispatched out of Cedars 48 hours later, which is unheard of after a C-section because of COVID protocols. So we went home. We had fires at that time, so we had to have our house sealed because of the smoke. And then, we can't leave because it's COVID, and there's a curfew, so you can't go anywhere anyway. And then I think it was a few days or maybe a week or 2 later, there was an earthquake. And we were just like, you know what, like, let's start again. Let's do something different. And we thought about France, and no offense, France, then we chose France. And then his sister actually threw out Portugal. I'd never been. And embarrassingly, I don't know that I could have found it on a map at that point. I didn't know anything about Portugal. I'm American, so sometimes we don't know these things all the time.
And also, you speak to a lot of people who've moved here. Like, for me, I'd only I only came the year before and decided, okay, I'm living here.
Me too.
And a year later, we'd bought a house, and the year after that, moved here. So I think that's not that strange. I find a lot of people who came here didn't actually know it beforehand. Did your husband know it?
He had been here as a teenager, so I think he thought he knew it.
Okay. Well, that's a man.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, I just came out briefly in the December before we moved, and then we moved. We just packed up, put everything in a container, and moved.
And would you say you fell in love with it like straight away and knew that's where you wanted to be, or just knew that it was better than LA and that was good enough?
I mean, I feel like it's safer than LA. It's less populated than LA. Yeah. I like the food better than LA. I like that there's no traffic here. Yeah. And so I just embraced it. I was ready for a change of lifestyle anyway. And so this was really, I love a slow pace of life and to be more relaxed. And so this to me was great. And I felt like I cast a wide net. I found a lot of hobbies and sports and things to do, met a lot of people. And so for me, it worked out really well.
Well, I think in the subject of sports, it would be wrong of us to move on without touching on paddle, since, as Claire mentioned at the start, obviously we know you as the queen of the paddle court, and you're definitely addicted, I would say.
And very good at it.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Way better than us.
I know.
No, you are. You are. So, how did that come about? Had you played paddle before? Or?
I hadn't played paddle before. I played tennis in college, doubles in college, and I hadn't really played since then. And people had talked about paddle, and I thought, I'm going to resist this because this sounds like it's not for me. And then finally one day I was like, okay, I'll play. And then, as most people know, it becomes a very addictive sport. Totally. And I've always been a really incredibly driven person. So, I mean, I think that's why I went into acting. And so for me with paddle, it was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be really, really good at it and just throw myself at it. And so I guess that's where my...
So what is it for anybody who is kind of listening or watching this and has never played paddle? You're missing out, by the way.
I know.
Yes.
But what do you think it is? Because we're addicted as well. My husband constantly goes to me, oh my gosh, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to paddle again. What do you think it is about paddle that kind of really gets you?
Well, I think there's the social aspect.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's a sport that you can pick up and become proficient at really quickly and easily. Even if you're not great, you can play it. Whereas I think golf, I mean, I don't know because I suck at golf, but I think golf takes a lot more dedication and regularity. Whereas paddle, I think you can kind of get out there and hit. Even my kids play around with it and they can hit a ball, which is amazing. So
I think it's the quick wins. It's even if you have a terrible day, there'll be enough good points for you to be going home going, I'm better than this. I don't know,
right. It's the win.
Yeah, even if it's just like you have 2 or 3 good shots in a game, you're like, I can get 4 or 5 next time, or I can get, there's always enough little.
Wins. Yeah. Well, it's funny to play with you because the paddle Jen comes out. And so if you don't see Jen at the net smashing a ball at you, that's in a good way. That's like. But so Jen's got a great question on that one.
Okay.
Who is?
Oh yeah, I was chatting to her. I'm keen to know. So from the Monday ladies group, like who is your favorite person to play with? So not necessarily I'm going to win every game with them because they're awesome, but like good energy, good vibes. Who do you like to play with?
Claire and Jen.
Oh, like present company excluded.
No, but I mean, it's going to be a really general answer, but it's the true one. Is that I like playing with different people for different reasons. I feel like Heidi brings a great energy. Nikki brings a great energy. I love playing with Margarita. I mean, there's so many people there. Robin's fun to play with and can be incredibly tough. And Mira's amazing, you know, and you guys are both really friendly and also very good, so you're fun to play with.
Also very good. We're first and foremost friendly.
But it's such a good way to meet people, isn't it? You know, it's just like instant network of like-minded people, and
It's
it is, and
great.
There's different groups and there's different tournaments, and because I've been somewhat dedicated in this, I tend to play with a lot of men who, for me, I feel like one of the boys. Like, I don't know, it probably doesn't look that way, but for me, it feels like these are my brothers and my buddies. You know, it's not a flirtatious thing. It's not a, let me meet guys kind of thing at all. It's completely, you know, and I've always gotten along with men very well, and so it's just fun to play with them. They play fast.
And do you think they level up your game? Because I think the guys by nature play like much more faster and kind of
Absolutely.
serious.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they play faster, they play harder, they play stronger.
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, women can be all those things as well. But it definitely just keeps you on your toes, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to play with the guys every now and then.
Definitely.
And then, although frustrating, because, like when some people go, oh, oh my gosh, you're playing with a girl, you shouldn't be like, hitting it that hard. And I disagree with that because I just think, there shouldn't be a difference. It's your choice to play with the guys.
Exactly.
And they're playing paddle. So you play, there shouldn't be any kind of, oh, it's a girl. So,
I think for the first year, I only ever played with girls. And then we added some of the guys into the Sunday group. And I was like, actually, this is bringing me on way more because I'm having to work a bit harder. And then I think since that, I sort of played more of the tournaments. And I think it brings you on, definitely. You have to up your game. There's no question.
Yeah, it does. And if you commit to play a certain level, you have to expect a certain level of play back. You can't be like, well, I'm going to play level 3, but I don't want anyone to hit it hard at me. And I don't want anyone to smash me. And I also feel like if you can adapt and get used to that kind of thing, then it doesn't matter. And you can just continue to play in it. So...
Final paddle question, because we could literally talk about this all day.
Let's be a paddle podcast.
Yeah, let's just change.
That's all right. I'm happy to talk about paddle.
Can you imagine? Everyone's like, they've already logged off.
Sorry. Final paddle question. Do you have any paddle goals for this year? Any tournaments you're keen to win, or?
I mean, I would just like to be my paddle goals are always just self-oriented, and I'd like to be a really strong level 3, like without question player. Like you cannot play in level 4. Do not sign up for level 4. Like that's where I would like to get.
I would say you're already there, let's be honest.
Well, I would actually like if you didn't sign up for level 4.
Give us a chance.
Then I know I'm losing. Unless I partner with you, obviously. And where do you like playing here? Where would you say is your favourite course?
It's funny because I think a lot of the different places have their own energy. Villamora has its own energy. Alsaki has its own energy. The campus is definitely its own energy. Valdolobo is its own energy. So I feel like each of them offers something different. So there's things that I like about all of them. I guess I play probably the most maybe at the camp. I don't know, all of them. I played all of them all the time. So, I don't know.
If anybody wants to know where Kam can be found, it's on a paddle
Good luck
court.
to you.
So, because of obviously, I know we've finished on the paddle thing, but I do think that is a really good way of opening up friendships. Because I'd say for me, especially moving over here and doing paddle, that is when I've made most of my friends and my net kind of widened. Do you think your background in acting kind of made you easier to make friends? If you were aside from paddle, do you think it gave you more of a, like putting yourself out there? Because I guess in acting, you've got to really put yourself out there, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's a different thing. I think it was just really important to me because I was living in a foreign country to make friends as quickly as possible so that I would feel at home here. I don't know. I think I'm pretty comfortable with people in general. And so I felt like I made a lot of mom friends with my kids going to school here. And then I feel like I made a lot of guy friends just playing in the paddle, which now, because my husband and I have sort of separated lately, that I don't know how good of friends I need to be with some of the men in paddle now, just because I don't want to create any kind of uncomfortable situations.
I was going to say, that must change the dynamic if you go from kind of being in a relationship, playing paddle with a load of guys, then it's almost in the back, well, it's not in the back of your head. You just know that you're not remotely kind of anything other than kind of a married woman playing. But then if you are in a new situation where you just have to be a little bit more maybe mindful of that.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, really.
Right, because I never thought anything of it because I'm married, and so playing with them was just, they're buddies to me. I've always, had male friends. And so I don't feel any differently that my situation has changed a little bit. But I don't want anyone else to feel differently or particularly wives to feel differently. And so it is something that I try to be respectful of, and I may step in it sometimes, but I don't mean to. And so, I try to be and I'm not out to meet anyone, it's like this time that I've separated, he's in Lisbon now doing his thing and he's happy doing that. And I'm fine with that. And I'm here doing my thing, which is just throwing myself into all these things that I wanted to have the time to do. Yeah. And frankly, I could just do without seeing another penis for a little bit. So that's fine. You know, I'm happy.
I think you nailed it. But I just think, so is this kind of new era then that you've found in this kind of currently penis-free era?
I like penis-free. I mean, it's a nice way to be.
I was going to say, is this sort of like a self-care Kam era, you know, where you're thinking maybe putting yourself first? I know obviously you've got the gorgeous boys, which they obviously your priority, but I'm thinking there's might be an element now of putting yourself first for a little bit and just doing the self-care.
I think that's what it is. I'm really just taking this time, and maybe it sounds selfish, for myself. You know, I'm from California. We like to do therapy, so I'm all about the therapy. I'm all about self-reflection. I think that I've grown. I think I've changed, and I really want to find authentically who I am.
Yeah.
I feel like, because we play so many roles. We're moms, we're taxis, we're housekeepers, we're cooks, we're all these things. And sometimes it's nice to, at a certain place in your life when you've matured along and you're like, who am I? You know, and what am I about? And I'm realizing very quickly the things that draw my attention and the things that that just attract me, and I want to build more in myself. So there's just been a lot of that, and that's truly what I'm interested in. You know, besides
and
penis.
do you think that besides penis? I love that. That's 3 times now we put the word penis.
Okay, let's move on.
Take some of it out.
But so, and do you also think kind of like with, you know, getting older, you find more of a clarity? Because I know that I'm kind of similar age to you, and I just feel like I'm probably at my clearest mind of kind of who I am, who I want to be, where my boundaries are. Do you feel like you've noticed that?
It was weird. The run up to 50, I was very nervous about it, and it felt like a big milestone. And it was almost the minute I hit 50, I just didn't care anymore. Like,
Really?
I don't care what people think of me. I don't care what they're going to say about me. I would look at myself and say, have I done something wrong here? If I haven't, don't care.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
You know,
I love that.
and if I have, then I'm responsible for stepping up and you know,
Accountability.
Exactly, my accountability for that. But otherwise, I don't care. People are going to think what they're going to think. They're going to say what they're going to say. A lot of times, you don't even know what they say, and they can say whatever they want to say. And I also think, because of my acting background, I'm pretty
thick-skinned, or
thick-skinned, and just gossip. Pervient, I guess.
Yeah.
Just resilient.
And resilient. And I don't even know if a pervient is a word, but there we go.
It is now. It's in Portuguese.
We've created something new today. It's just, there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to people writing online, weird things about me. So I guess impervious, that was the word I was looking for. I'm impervious to gossip, I think, at this point in my life. And if you cannot make everyone like you, and if someone doesn't,
who
okay,
cares?
you know, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do.
Well, a good friend of mine says that what other people think of you is none of your business, which I think is fabulous. Because it's not, because you can't control the narrative on everybody.
Who cares?
And also, not everybody's going to like you. As soon as you kind of understand that, I think it's like really important, because, you know, I used to get so hell-bent on that. But actually not everybody's going to like you. And like you say, you just described it perfectly, where you say, you know, you think to yourself, have I done something wrong? No. So, you know.
But I also think, do you even care? Do you know, there's so many people with such mean things to say. I don't, you know, and maybe when you're younger you care more, but like as you get a bit older, it's quite freeing, isn't it? To just like live your life, do your thing, and not, you know, not.
I think the most important superpower you can have is to not care. And I've always lived by the adage that he who cares less wins. And I think if you also look at why you care, like, oh, I don't like when people don't like me. Why is that? Because that says something about yourself. And if you can realize why that's important to you and overcome it, then you truly can let go of people's opinions of you and get to a place of not caring.
Yeah, and just calm, I think. But okay, so going on to, I just touched on the, obviously, getting to our age, and so that leads me on to.
I know where you're going with this.
Yes, I want to know.
I know where you're going with this.
So how do you feel on the whole plastic surgery, the Botox, all the rest of it?
Well, because I was in the entertainment industry, I probably started doing occasional Botox at about 28.
Wow.
Which, you know, it was the industry. I can blame it on that. But but not regularly.
Yeah, but it
Here and
served you
there.
well because you look
Yeah.
great. You
Oh,
don't look
thanks,
frozen.
girls. Thanks.
You
It's
look
also
great.
the lighting.
I know we do have good.
We have
No,
good
don't say
lighting
that
here.
because if it comes out bad, then I'll go, no, the lighting was rubbish.
I don't think Botox is a big deal. I know some people get very freaked out by it. They think you're putting poisons in your body. Probably are. But for me, I felt like it's been great. Yeah. Really. And they have a new thing now. They inject salmon sperm.
I've not tried this.
Polynucleotides, no, but I'm going to try it literally in about 2 months' time. I'm going to go for it.
Have you had this
It's like IVF for your face.
Have you done it?
No, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yes,
I think we should go for, maybe we'll get a group discount.
And I don't know how they, yes, exactly. A testing thing for your podcast. But I don't know how they figured it out. Like, wow, how did they come up with? They tried different animals. Like, how do you?
It's part of the Skin Boosters group, isn't it? So I think you did have the Profilo as a skin booster, but I think that is a hyaluronic acid, but not like a cross-linked one, so it doesn't puff you up like fillers do.
So
I
salmon
think
sperm.
the salmon sperm is it's injected. I've done so much research into this. I'm obsessed with this. And so they inject it loads. Apparently, it looks like you've just literally walked through a swarm of mosquitoes.
Yep.
And a lot of people actually don't have it necessarily all over the face, although you can have it all over face and neck. But they have it literally around the eyes, which initially really scared me because you think, oh, don't put anything in your eyes. But the before and afters are just insane. So, yeah.
Do they do that here in the Algarve yet?
Yes. There's a lady in Olas de Agua. I'll put this in the show notes if you want details.
I'm sure there's a few.
But, she offers it, and so I will find out the details. But yeah, like I say, I'll put it in the show notes because I'm 100% all for kind of trying to make yourself look as good as you can for your age. I don't want to look freakish. I don't want to look, you know, like I'm tall or frozen. Yeah. But I do want to look fresh. I don't want to look like I'm tired, you know?
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between doing these sort of minimally invasive procedures and like going under the knife.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's better to wait and not do any of them and just go under the knife. But I feel like if you can kind of keep things up as you go.
Yeah.
I always thought it's good to keep like a 10-year age range in yourself. Like don't be 50 and try to look 25. I think that's where people go wrong. Yeah. And I think if you can just be 50 but like look 40, that's okay. Yeah. You know, if you can kind of stick in that age range and then just age gracefully as you go.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I think you're always up against a losing battle if you're trying to just look kind of, you know, too young. It's never going to happen, you know?
Yeah, and people know, they can tell. Yeah. Like, you know, you're...
Well, the hands. Apparently you can have the polynucleotides in the hands.
I saw that.
But
it's like you could be 20 or 70. You don't want that, you know, ambiguous look that you could be anything under the sun, you know?
Definitely.
But you've been happy here. You found enough places to do the things you wanted to do that you would have had back in the US. Because I think people, you know, in the US looking to move here, and there are a lot at the moment, sometimes ask the question, you know, can I still, you know, find supermarkets that sell the things I like? Can I still, you know, have the things that I'm used to having? And obviously that's key for women, isn't it, to have like clinics or, you know, places where they can go to have things done. So there's no, would you say there's no shortage here, or?
I would say you can find it.
I
wouldn't say there's a shortage. I mean, LA is a town full of
good
the most progressive, advanced stuff that you can find. But I do think there are people here that have brought helpful procedures in, for sure. Yeah. They have a new thing now, too. You can glue your face up and your neck.
Wow.
Glue it.
Why be up that?
That might be a step too far. I'm not sure. I don't know.
What happens if you have a ponytail? Do you have like a glue line all down the back?
I don't know, and I don't know if it's like wrinkled up somewhere.
I'm not sure. Feeling that one. I think
I don't know about the gluing.
I'll let you two try that.
Like glue, just cut it off. Try it with the PVA. But there are. Do you know what the whole? I don't know if I'd ever dare go down the facelift route, but I look at the facelifts now that they're doing, and it's insane. You just can't tell. But I know.
We should find out who their doctors are.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lady I follow, Caroline Stanbury, who she's really just publicised her facelift and documented it all the way through. And literally, when she first had it done, she looked like she'd been in the biggest kind of train wreck, and which she is like, oh, look at this. But she looks phenomenal. Like you just would not tell. And there's just so many rumours about. I'm not going to name them on here, obviously, but you know, male actors. The really famous ones who are super good looking already. apparently there's like, you know, a couple of scars here. But
why not? Do you know
No,
what?
I'm
If that makes you
Yeah.
happy, like I just think
I love that she was public about that as well.
Yeah.
It was so helpful, I think, to just bring those things into conversation because, you know, it helps the rest of us consider these sort of things.
I think
and
so, but it's
it's
it'd
brave.
be very scary. Imagine if you end up looking like a
Too
wind
tight.
tunnel.
There's
Yeah.
nothing worse.
you've got to do your research, you know,
Yeah.
check the previous work and do you. I just think, you know, you could like conform to what everyone else expects of you, or you just do whatever you
Yeah,
want to
do
do. And I
you.
think definitely an
100%.
age thing, just
Yeah, and
do it.
I also think genetics just plays a lot into it as well.
Yeah.
I just spilled my water into my crotch, so I think it's stand up.
That's why we won't catch that on camera. So listen, going back to the kind of celebrity acting roles.
Yes.
Do you have any gossip you can share with us? Obviously.
I mean,
you
I
know.
do. I mean, of course, I have a lot of gossip about a lot of things. I've had a lot of leading men, fabulous leading men, in my life, and I've been very fortunate that way to act opposite of like some fabulous, talented, and well-known men. So I would have to kind
might have
of,
to leave the
I have
names
to
out
be
of it.
slightly careful. I mean, I did take a foray into jewelry for about a year because I had been an actor and model basically my whole adult life. And so I thought, I want to know what it's like to be steady and stable.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend of mine that was a bespoke jeweler. He was actually a royal jeweler for a while. And so I started working for him. It wasn't a storefront or anything. It was just a designer. And so he was doing a collection with Angelina Jolie, and to build the proceeds built schools in Afghanistan. And so I was helping with this process. And I was over in Monaco seeing a friend, and he said, "Oh, I need you to do me a favor on your way back. You're going to fly through Nice. A guy's going to give you a package to bring back. Don't look at it. Do not lose it. Do not lose this package." So I was like, "Okay."
Did you just clarify that this was
Not
like
drugs.
jewelry related?
Yeah, no, I'm like, this is nothing illegal. No. And so I meet this guy in the Nice airport. He barely made it. I kind of barely made it. I thought I was going to miss my plane. It was the whole thing. But anyway, I got it. And so I got on the plane. I thought, I need to know what I'm bringing
Yeah.
over. And so I look, and it's a ring. And so I'm like, okay, I got to be really careful about all the things I say about this. But so anyway, I got back and gave it to him. And I thought, whose ring? This is somebody's important ring, which I've already given away the punchline, I think. But so then I'm like, whose ring could it be? Angelina Jolie's. This has to be Angelina Jolie's ring because we work with her. We design jewelry with her. So, of course, my boss would have worked with Brad to design this ring for him. And it turns out it was. And so Brad had brought it to their chateau, Miraval, in France, and then had left it there in the safe. But now they were back in the U.S., and so nobody had time to go and get it and to bring it back. And since I was over there, I was the one, the specialized courier that was bringing
Did
back
you
this
panic
very special
once
ring.
you knew you had such
I was
a
like, oh,
kind
how
of-
exciting. Like, how is this going to go?
Yeah.
And I might have taken a picture of it.
I was going to
at
say,
the
I'm
time
sure you had
on
to
your
try it
finger.
on.
But I don't know where it is because this was like 12 years ago or something. So it's gone now, so it doesn't matter. And I never showed anyone. And that might not have even happened.
Cut.
And then I was tasked with setting up this fake faux photo shoot of them that was supposed to look like paparazzi, her in a museum with this ring on, because they weren't going to announce that they were engaged, and it was just going to be discovered that they were engaged.
Okay.
And so I set up this, maybe I shouldn't be saying all this.
Go ahead.
A shoot in the LACMA, the Los Angeles Museum, there in Los Angeles, and we had a guy come in, a paparazzi come in, and Brad was there, and they had Pax or Maddox, I can't remember, was there, and we just photographed them looking at exhibits. And so she had the ring, and so there were different pictures, and in the end, we picked out which one sort of subtly showed. I should not be saying.
So this
this.
is her.
This is really like a
This is her engagement announcement pictures. This
yes,
is
and so
huge.
we released a picture out to the world, And no one noticed at first. And we were like, how does no one notice? And so we're like, this is bizarre, because we know that this would go like fire if anybody, and it kind of went overnight. We're like, this is strange. And then Radar Online picked it up and they noticed. And then it was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was like a wildfire. Like nothing. We had paparazzi outside of our offices on Rodeo Drive. Our phone lines broke because so many people were calling. They were like following my boss. Like we would have to leave out a different exit of the building. It was crazy. Wow. And then their engagement went viral. Wow. And it was all very exciting because my boss had designed the ring, and and the rest is history. And you can still see that picture online of her with her son leaning over the exhibit.
Right, we're going to have to Google that actually, so I can see the ring. Was it an amazing ring?
Yeah, amazing.
So she didn't know what the ring looked like, or did she play a part in it, designing it?
I don't know. I don't think she did, but I think that he was very attuned into her taste and things like that. So.
Maybe she had a Pinterest board.
Maybe she had a vision board.
I don't know if that was a thing back then. Like, these are all the rings I love. I don't think Angeline needs to do that, actually. That's amazing. What a story,
and she's a very lovely person and very philanthropic, as you know, as you can see. And so her collection did very well, and they built schools, and I think they continue on to this day to do different charitable endeavors with the whole thing. So
that's amazing.
Very cool.
Really good.
Yeah. Love that story.
I might get in trouble.
No. Well, we've been signaled at, so hurry up.
We're going to wrap it up now, but we've got to do our quick fire. You're going to do a couple.
I feel like we could chat all day, though. I'm sorry, girl.
We've loved having you on. It's been so great.
But we do have a couple of super quick questions before you go, just ones that we're keen to know the answer to. So starting with one from the Algarve. So for example, I'm trying to think, there's so many good ones here. I want to know, so every time I see you paddle, you always have a coffee in your hand. Yeah. Where's your go-to? Where do you like to grab your coffee?
I mean, I generally make my own at home. But I mean, the Starbucks people know me by name. So.
Okay.
Starbucks it is.
Yeah.
Everyone raves about Portuguese coffee, but I'm like you, I'm a bit of a Starbucks.
I've gotten into matcha.
Yeah, no, I love a matcha, but I have to sweeten it. Yes, because otherwise it can taste like dirt. Exactly, dirt, which is not good.
Want to do the next one?
Yeah, I'm not going to go Algarve related. I'm going to go more juicy. Okay. So if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, top 3, who would they be?
Oh gosh, I thought about this the other day. I mean, top 3, dead or alive. I mean, I kind of would like to meet Cleopatra. I would like to see what she actually looked like in person. I know it sounds like a very kind of like a superficial reason to meet her, but I would just, you hear about how sexy she is and like how she's seduced all these men. So a girl wants to know the secrets.
I wonder what Heskin's like. Maybe she'd gone down the pudding.
Exactly. She got that salmon sperm.
Yeah, exactly.
Different salmon sperm. Let's see, who else? So I think that, Anne Boleyn, I think she would be sort of fascinating. Because again, I feel like I have a theme here.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Anybody alive?
No.
Yeah, that's a boring.
Yeah, alive. I mean, who wants that? When we've, let's see, alive. I mean, I guess maybe I would I think Ryan Gosling's pretty fit.
Okay.
Yeah, or
he's
maybe
had a lot of work done, hasn't he?
Has he?
I think so.
I don't know if
maybe I shouldn't say that actually, but I think maybe there might be a bit of the old filler or two. Yeah.
That's not very interesting of me, is it? I feel like I should pick somebody deep and...
No, that's perfect.
Not at all.
That's a nice
I'm
balance.
I'm going to share with you who mine would be. In fact, I wouldn't even do that.
It's early in the morning, so...
Next one, guilty pleasure. What's your guilty pleasure?
I feel like my guilty pleasure is, I mean, it's time to myself for sure, but I mean, I'll have a vape now and then. I feel like that might be a guilty pleasure, although I've kind of gone off it now, but I had a month or two where that was really a fun thing to do.
That's not too bad.
Well, there you go. They say it's a guilty pleasure, so you just nailed it. Right, okay. What's the last thing you did that pushed you out of your comfort zone?
I mean, well, this was interesting this morning to come back to being on camera and to be speaking and stuff. So I think this kind of pushed me or triggered me. I'm not sure which. But
when's the therapy session booked in next?
Actually, later today.
Oh, there you go. So it works out.
So, I mean, I feel like I've been doing a lot lately that's been pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I think a lot of the people I'm playing paddle with at the level I'm playing has pushed me out of my comfort zone. I think running with this web series is pushing me out of my comfort zone. I think separating from my husband is pushing me out of my comfort zone in a big way.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of living my life, I think, being pushed out of my comfort zone at the moment.
It's a big year.
It's a big year. But isn't every year kind of a big year in its own way?
It's a big transition year for you, though. Like certain things coming to an end and lots of new things on the horizon. So that's really exciting. Okay, final quick fire question, and then we are absolutely going to wrap up. Is so you talked a bit about the change in your life. So where do you go to enjoy yourself now that you have a bit of free time? Thinking about Algarve specifically, where do you think is a fun place if you're going to go out with your girlfriends? Or
I mean, I'm not a big drinker or a big partier, so I don't really go out and do much of that. So I would have to say probably any place I play paddle with a fun group of people. A lot of times people kind of congregate after the matches and have drinks or coffees or whatever. So I think I'm really enjoying that at the moment, just sitting down and socializing with people, whether it be at Dano's or at the terrace place in Valdolobo or Match Point over at
so
Mora.
nice.
Yeah,
It's been
they're
really
just
done.
Yeah. Tiramisu is great as well.
Yeah.
We go after coaching a lot there.
Nice.
And so, I spend a lot of time doing that. And also, I like to be adventurous now that I'm on my own and have free time. So I'll go to Spain, I'll go to Gibraltar just by myself on my own. And that's been kind of freeing and fun to do.
That's amazing. You sound like you got it nailed. Honestly, I'm
glad it sounds that way.
Because we've just loved listening to your stories. Because the acting world is just so fascinating that you came from that. You've made such a life for yourself in Portugal, which is fabulous. And it's always good to hear the word penis at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I'm sorry for doing
Actually,
that. I'm sorry for doing that. I take it back. Maybe you can cut some of them out.
No,
Whatever in a million years. Oh, no,
It was
Kam,
a
thanks for
huge
coming on the
pleasure
show.
coming on with you guys. This was really fun, and I wish you luck. And you guys are going to be fabulous with this. And anytime you want me back, I'm here.
Thank you.
We'll have a regular slot.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you,
so good to
girls.
chat to you.
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Portugal Diaries podcast. Tune in next week for our next episode.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review. And you can find us on our socials at the Portugal Diaries podcast on Instagram. See you next week.